What's up, innovators? Mike Hill here of Hill Innovative Solutions, and this is the Innovative Lifestyle, where we take a deep dive into all things innovative, everything from product development to how do we innovate in our lives. Thanks for joining us on this episode as we continue to take a deep dive into the new product development process. If you joined us last week, we took a bit of a hiatus. I had something that was just really weighing down on my heart, needing to talk about vision and how we can define our vision and really have an impact in both our lives and other people's lives and in the world around us. So I'm glad we took that hiatus, but here we are back today, diving into the new product development process and the framework that we use at Hill Innovative Solutions. We use a very simple acronym idea, very simple framework: identify, design, develop, execute, and assess. I'm not going to go over all that again, as that's what we'll be doing over the next several episodes, is diving into each one of those phases of the process. One of the things that I noticed as I began laying out my notes for this episode is that I don't think I can cover each phase in just one short blog, one short podcast. So I'm going to be breaking this up a little bit more. We'll go and maybe cover a little bit of a topic, and we'll see where it takes us. Right? I'm excited about this. This is knowledge that I've gained over the last 15 plus years, almost 20 years now, of developing products for different manufacturing companies as an engineer, as an executive, as a program manager, and now as an entrepreneur, and operating my own product development company, and just really enjoying the process, and all the things that I've learned, and being able to implement all these processes, and more importantly, being able to share all these processes with individuals like yourself that are looking for how can I bring this back to my company, or how can I help myself in developing my own product, creating my own personal freedom. And so today, take a deep dive into the identify phase, right? And what it really means to identify, what we mean by that. And in the identify phase, in the framework that Hill Innovative Solutions uses, is really we're gathering as much information as possible as early as possible. So if you've listened to my webinar or some of my other podcasts, you'll know that really it is, as we manage the product development process, whether you're an inventor, whether you're working for a corporation, no matter what you're trying to do is you're trying to manage risk, right? And the earlier on you are in this process, the more uncertainty there is, the more risk there is. All right, and so we're trying to manage that. And the way that we manage that is with this identify phase, where we gather as much data as we possibly can. We want to gather as much data and minimize our risk as early as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that things aren't going to change and we're going to change our minds along the way. We absolutely will, because that's the beauty of the product development process and the iterative design process, which is what we practice here. But if you have any expectations of having a product launch on time, having a product launch within a reasonable budget, then you need to find ways to manage your risk. And the way that we do that is we do our best to identify as much as possible. So, and where this comes from is actually it's actually a principle from lean product development, and is one of the core principles from one of the 13 core principles from the Toyota product development system, is to front load the development process as much as possible. So we practice that here at Innovative Solutions, Hill Innovative Solutions, and we just so that's what we're going to dive into. So let's get going. So where do we start? Right, if we're looking to minimize risk, and where do we start in this identify phase? And one of the things that in organizations that I've worked in manufacturing companies I've worked in, there's always a plethora of ideas. But I think what I'd like to do is step back a little bit further into the process to the point that how do we even identify an idea, right? So so we'll dive into that today. We'll see where it takes us, see how much further along we get, and we may dive into a little bit more into this, but I'll take a deep dive into what's first in the identify phase. We got to identify what it is that we want to do, right? So that's what we're going to look at. What are we going to do? Now, if you're a large corporation, or if you're a corporation of any size, and by any size I mean you've got a customer, right? If you are a business, that means that you have a customer willing to pay you for a service, right? And so, or willing to pay you, in our instance, for a product. And so if you're a business of any kind, you kind of have it made in the shade, right? If you really want to know what you need to be developing, you've got direct feedback. You got a direct line of feedback, and all you got to do is ask, right? This is where people get really mixed up, right? Whoa, wait a minute. Henry Ford said that if I would have asked my customers what they wanted, then they would have told me a better buggy whip, right? And yes, that's true to an extent. And Clayton Christensen in '97 put out his book, The Innovator's Dilemma, how disruptive innovation, and really coined this phrase, disruptive innovation, and how it infringes upon existing companies. But we'll talk a little bit more about those disruptive innovations and really inventing, what's next, or disruptions next when we talk kind of the, blank slate type stuff. But if you're a business, you can't just ignore your customers, right? You can't just ignore what it is that they have to say, what it is that they're requesting. Now, and I say all of this with the fact that you've got to have a filter on what the customers are saying, right? Because they are going to say, I just want a faster buggy whip. So you kind of have to mix what the customers are saying with what technology is out there, right? And what technology is coming, and what technological advances may already be entering into your industry, or are on the fringe of your industry. And so that's where there's this nice dichotomy of what is it that the customer wants with what technology is reasonable and available. So that's kind of where we start. And again, start by asking the customer. They're going to tell you, right? And if you think that, and by the way, most of the time you don't even have to ask. Customer, well, if they're not happy, they're going to tell you anyways. And anyone who has ever dealt with a customer knows that they have no problems telling you what you're doing wrong, right? They really tell you what you're doing right, but they have no problem telling you what you're doing wrong. So take those comments, take that feedback, because that's direct feedback, that's direct identification, and it's a direct reflection of your product, right? And you need to find ways to improve that, right? So that's where you start. Start by identifying what it is that bugs your customers, right? And so what we do with this information is we define a problem, right? Or we define multiple problems that perhaps a solution can solve. But really, step one in identifying what type of product we want is to identify a problem, right? We're not innovating just to innovate, because then all of a sudden you're putting back to Clayton Christensen's The Innovator's Dilemma and disruptive innovation. You're just putting a bunch of bells and whistles on stuff that the customer really doesn't want, right? So take a step back, right? Understand what the customer is saying to you. Understand what the customer feedback really is. And find what it is that is find that problem, identify what the true problem is, and that's the filter that you'll use, right? I mentioned what is, take what the customer tells you, but you got to put a filter on it, and that filter is what is the real problem. What is the real problem that your customer is trying to relay to you, right? And the customer may say various different things like, "Hey, it's too big. It's too big. Multiple products. I can't tell you how many products I've developed that the immediate response is it's too big. Okay, why is it too big? And as you dig deep into it, right? And this is a real world example. Developed a product for a customer. It was an escape device, and I said it's too big. I said, why? What do you mean it's too big? It's smaller than most of the other equipment that you carry on, that you carry with you, and it's smaller than most of the other stuff that you want to do with it. And the digging and digging and digging after months and months and months of listening to different customers, what is it what makes it too big? Right, and this was an escape device for the fire industry, so for firefighters, and it had you had a belt loop on it. They could put it on their belt loop. It's too big. It's too big. What do you mean it's too big? Like it's smaller. It's smaller than your hoses that are on your belt loop. It's smaller than your alarm system that's on your pack. Why is it too big? What do you mean it's too big? Right, and it just digging, and turns out more often than not, the customers that were saying that it's too big, they didn't want to put it on their belt loop, right? What they wanted to do with it is they wanted to just shove it in a pocket. They wanted to put it in a cargo pocket, right? Or a turnout gear pocket. And so, but it took so much, right? I mean, this is one of the smallest things that they were carrying on their persons at the time, and the feedback constantly was, it's too big, it's too big, it's too big. So you've got to identify what the problem is, right? What the problem is they didn't want to be seen with it on their pack. They don't get their own packs. They sometimes a lot of the firehouses have their own pack. Everybody, you never know what you want to get. So if the firefighter's buying it for his person, he wants to carry it on his person. So identify what the problem really is, right? And so once identify the problem, then we can move to a solution. So that's step one. With and like I said, if you're a business and you've got customers, you've got tremendous amount of feedback possibilities that you can just tap into. But again, put that filter on there of finding what the true problem is. So that being said, let's move on to what if I'm a garage inventor. I've got this wonderful. I want to develop something. I want to design something, but I'm not really sure what it is that I want to do, what it is that I want to design and develop, and how I want to go and how to go about it. And so this is something that I would say. You start at the same spot, right? You don't. Unfortunately, you don't have the customer feedback and reality. So you got to turn it on itself. You are the customer, right? What is it that you would buy? What is it that you want? And really, what problem are you experiencing that you need a solution to, right? And so while most people will appear that a company with an existing customer has a lot easier path to defining a product and identifying a product, in reality, as an inventor or entrepreneur, you've got it made in the shade, right? Because you don't have to filter through what the customers are saying and try to figure out what is it that they really mean. You simply have to dig deep inside of yourself and say, what is it that really bugs me? What bugs me that I need a solution to, that I want a solution to, that I would pay money for a solution to? Because remember, in the long run, we want to monetize this, right? We want to make something that people are willing to, that is of value to people want to pay for. So start internally, start with yourself, identify the problems that you face day to day. I truly feel too many times we have a problem of we don't pursue monetizing a solution, right? Because we feel that we're the only ones with it, right? We feel that we're the only person with this problem, right? I don't want people to know about my problems, right? This is my problem, right? And it might be embarrassing if someone knows about this problem, right? I'm a bigger person. I've spent most of my life overweight, right? And so there's been times where I was so heavy, I had lower back pain, and so it hurt to bend over and put socks and shoes on, right? And so I tell you this, and I've never gotten to the point that I couldn't do that, but definitely felt like I was approaching that stage in several times of my life, and so that would be a problem. And there's solutions out there, and there's some, as seen on TV, products out there, but I don't think that I feel that there can be better ones, right? So there's a problem there that and again, I use this example because I'm not really proud of something like that, right? No one is proud to admit that they've got a problem bending over and being able to put their socks and shoes on, right? But you're not the only one. Right. And I know that I'm not the only one because, like I said, there's some products on the market to support it. Right. Whether it's mobility, there's so many mobility problems out there. So I challenge you to put aside that misconception that, oh, I'm the only one with this problem. I'm the only one that has this issue. And really, instead, really see your problems as opportunities, right? And opportunities to monetize and get yourself a life that you may not have ever thought of before, right? Because I guarantee you're not the only one with the problems that you experience every day. There's the one thing that just continues to blow my mind as I get older, as I do more research, as I read more books, as I dig into more things. I mean, I've done research on or I've read books 100 years old, and they ring true today, facing the same problems that we face today, and they've been documented for 100 years, but yet people are still going, how do I overcome this? How could I be the only one with this problem? But you're not the only one with this problem. In fact, it was documented 100 years ago that this problem exists, and there was a solution documented 100 years ago on how to fix this problem, and people just don't want to read it. And so I challenge you not to think that your problems are internal and they're alone to yourself. So bring those to boil, right? Bring them up front and say, I've got this problem. I'm going to find a solution, right? And that goes back to, okay, so now that I've identified this problem, right? Corporation, inventor, entrepreneur, I've identified this problem. I look at what's technically available, right? And I begin defining what it is that really is going to solve this problem, right? What technology is out there that is going to solve this problem? And we'll talk now that we're almost 18 minutes, 20 minutes into this here. We'll go ahead and we'll talk next time about actually how do we get those specifications? How do we identify those? Really dive deep into identifying those specifications. What do we do with those specifications? But for today, right? So as we talk, like I said, identify. First phase of the new product development process, identify the product. How do we identify the product? First, we've got to identify the problem, right? So we start there. And again, I just want to say this, right? If you just not to harbor on this or harp on this too much, but really, if you think that you're the only one with the problem, you're wrong, right? Comedians make a living off of pointing out problems that no one wants to talk about, right? So really, don't be afraid of the problems that you're experiencing, and don't think that you're alone in them, right? So continue to identify them, write them down, jot them down, because most of the times we experience them so often in our lives that we think that it's just part of life, right? And there can't be a better way of doing it. So that's where I challenge you. Take a step back. Look at what are the things that truly bother you. What bothers you in your day-to-day? What problem do you experience all the time that you think that there's got to be a better solution? I hear it all the time from people. There's got to be a better way, right? For years and years, when I first started my career, and when I first started my career, my boss used to tell me, there's not an engineer worth their weight in the world because they can't figure out how to make a coffee pot to pour without running down the side of it. Coffee pots have come a long way since then. Believe it or not, coffee pots have evolved in the last 20 years. Weird. Right? No one knew about that, but there have been modifications in that industry and multiple other industries that make sense. And so that's, again, where I challenge you. identify what your problems are. And so now that we've got our problems identified, we're going to look for a solution, right? And next time what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how do we specify what that problem is and how do we specify the product that's going to resolve it, right? Join me next time. Take the time, follow The Innovative Lifestyle, like us at hillinnovativesolutions.com or Hill Innovative Solutions on Facebook. If you're looking for free resources, free webinar on how to, on the deeper dive into the new product development process that we're working through here, there's a free webinar at hillinnovativesolutions.com/resources. Thank you for your time today and look forward to seeing you next week.